So the global issue that I have chosen was gender roles because it has been an issue for over centuries, but I will say that it has gotten better over time. But as a society, we still may encounter this issue. There are still many cultures out there that have specific roles that each gender must complete in order to fulfill their duty, such as how Mexican women must be submissive, clean the house, care for their children, cook, and etc., in order to please their husbands, and if they don't, they have failed at life. One of the mostly known is the LGBTQ plus community and how only heterosexual relationships are permitted or seen as okay. And meanwhile, the homosexuals are a disgrace to mankind. This is not the case because they are causing no harm whatsoever and they should be able to love whomever they like. It's just that people have this sort of mindset of basing things off gender. So in the novel Medak Ali, written by Nagab Mahfouz, it was a time period in which World War II broke out. This was specifically about Egypt and how Egyptians lived their daily lives during this. In the text, it had mentioned a character named Hamida and how she fell for a man named Abbas, but he wasn't in the best financial state, so she wasn't really sure if she wanted to be with him because of it. It was her job as a woman to get married with a man who was able to financially support her. And since this took place during World War II, in order to make some sort of living, he had to enlist himself into the war to prove his love to her and to financially support her. And so she waited for him until he returned from battle. Another example of showing how gender roles have been betrayed in this novel was that a woman had entered Hamida's house. She greeted her with a hug and exchanging kisses because this was a way women would greet people, even if they truly despised the person. Hamida wasn't very fond of Mrs. Afifi, but still treated her with kindness to show respect, and because it was considered ladylike to greet people like this, especially women. But men have also experienced being gendered, such as being able to support his wife and family, work, they had to act tough, and etc. Back then, the role a man should take, especially during this time period, was to enter the war, and if they couldn't financially support their wife or family, they would enter to be able to support them and get a better life for them. Abbas was drafted to enter the war and joined in order for him to give Hamida the luxurious life she had always dreamt of. Hamida plays the role of a gold digger in this book because she believes there's no one deserving enough to marry her. Despite her foster mother's complaints and concerns that she would never be able to find love because of her temper and her desires to freedom and have a strong dislike for children, which is completely opposite of a traditional woman. When she first accepts to be engaged to a man named Abbas, who departs to join the army but engages in adulterous actions of affluent wealthy men, we see more of her gold digger nature. The only reason she agreed to be engaged to Abbas was because he was the only option left in Medak Ali for her. In the 1940s, Medak Ali served as a symbol of feminism, showing that women could and would make the necessary sacrifices to achieve equality and, in a sense, to rule the sex hierarchy in the African culture driven by men. In another novel, The Handmaid's Tale, written by Margaret Atwood, takes place in a patriarchal, tolerant, dynamic state called the Republic Gilead, which has toppled the American government in the near future of New England. The whole novel is about the way they teach women to become obedient and listen to the people they have been purchased from, which is known as the commanders. They are each given a certain colored dress which identifies their function and purpose. So all the handmaids were required to wear long, loose, deep red dresses that are in charge of having sexual intercourse once a month with the high-ranking commander they have been assigned to because red indicates the handmaid's fertility. And if they fail to have sexual intercourse, they begin to lose their purpose and begin to lower in social class. This was the time period where they took control over middle class and lower class women and forced them to have jobs that benefit the commander. While I was reading the novel, a certain point that stuck out to me was when Alfred, the main character, went to check up to see if she was still fertile. The doctor began to abuse his power to basically rape her, but said that he was quote unquote helping her. She politely declined in a way so that he won't lie and make her lose her position as a handmaid. This shows that since he's in higher in rank, in power, he could get away with anything and they would believe him. And he has probably done this to other scared women and have gotten away with it. This shows the issue that gender roles, because women were scared of what a man may do, especially during this time period, since the women were being trained to obey and not have opinions. This currently happens a lot in today's world, where women are afraid to speak up due to a man's power or just his words and to be beaten and stuff like that. Another thing that the handmaids have experienced was that they would have ceremonies once a month where the commander would basically have intercourse with each and every one of them in order to impregnate them so his wife could have children to raise. Meanwhile, Marthas are the housekeepers and the domestic helpers. These are older, infertile women who are unable to conceive, but are capable of raising the other people's children, which is basically the commanders and the commander's wife. They wear a dress in dull green smocks that resemble surgical scrubs. They also had men have certain roles. Majority of the men in Gilead are econom men. They make up working class. Guardians occupy the next societal tier and act as bodyguards for the commander's upperclassmen who often hold government positions. These two texts consist of gender roles left and right. We may not see them as an issue, but if we were to put ourselves into their shoes, we wouldn't have appreciated it. We women should not be only portrayed as fragile, weak, emotional, and dumb, and etc. We are more than that, and we have improved in today's world and showing that we are capable of doing the exact same or more than what men could do. And men shouldn't also be portrayed as strong, brave, fearless, emotionless, and etc. because they also have feelings. They have days where they want to cry. They shouldn't be seen as, he's a man, he can handle it, he won't cry. But they also are human beings with emotions, and they are capable of feeling as what we women feel as well. But in today's world, we have drastically improved from what it was back then. But I won't lie, it could still improve. There's still people with mindsets with having objects specifically associated with a with gender, such as having boy clothes, girl clothes, toys for girls, toys for boys. But I simply see it as toys and clothing. A boy could want to wear a girl's clothes, but not say it's for girls. It's just clothing. Clothing does not have a specific gender to it, neither does toys. But we as a society have grown of associating things for girls and boys and associated colors like pink is for girls, blue is for boys, but it's just colors. And since these objects so-called have genders, parents refuse to buy items for their children that is the opposite sex, but they lose sight of what's important, which is the child or the person's happiness. People should not be shamed for simply liking something that they enjoy just because it was meant for a girl or just meant for a boy.